how do you start? How do you introduce like podcasters to podcasters? Is there a way that you do that? Does anyone know?
Yeah.
I think just like that.
I
nailed
think
it.
we just did it. I think we just did it.
I've been looking for the ultimate like 4 podcasters walk into a conference joke, but I haven't been able to figure it out. So maybe right now is the time.
We walked in.
We walked in.
We're here.
That's it.
Let's go.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
Let's
like,
go.
yeah, I think that's it's pretty good. I think everybody can kind of speak for themselves, when it comes to podcasters. So yeah, thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Well, thanks to all of us. We should pat ourselves on the back, I think.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So beyond Activ New York, like what's where do we start? It's been I think one thing I do want to say, it's been a great event, and I appreciate these guys pulling it together, because I think there's a real, this year anyway, or this is their first year, there's a really unique mix of people, and even though I've been stuck in this room, a lot of interesting conversations.
Yeah, one of the things I think that they nailed is the fact that they have the speaker sessions, and yes, you can choose your own adventure between the different rooms, but then it shuts down for those dedicated networking hours, and you're really seeing people take advantage of that.
Yeah, I would agree. I talked to Ross a couple months ago to help promote this, and we were talking about what makes a great event. One of the things he said too is like having enough space within the event where people can have those natural occurrences walking through the hallway. Maybe I'm talking to Matthew, someone walks by, you introduce me, next thing you know, your network's expanding. So they've done a really good job. I know it's really intentional, and I think that's a really excellent point.
Yeah, they've nailed the timing as well. Like, this is something where I'm not overwhelmed and dying by 5 p.m., which is oftentimes what happens, like sitting in that conference room for 9 hours straight or whatever it is. That is very painful for someone like me. So the fact that last night I felt like I could roll out until midnight, not bat an eye, and that was really a lovely experience, that it was just the right amount of content, just the right amount of time, and just the right amount of the right people. They really did nail the curation of this event and the people that are here. I think that's probably second to none.
Yeah.
It's second to none.
100%.
What was it you mentioned? I didn't get to see any of the sessions, but you were talking earlier about the first one yesterday. What was that?
Deborah did a great job. Deborah Strogo moderated a panel yesterday, really just looking at consumer trends, pricing trends. What does this look like? A couple of like really interesting statistics that came out. ABC released just before this their report. By the way, it's spectacular. Highly recommend it. Probably one of the best things I grabbed while I was here. They show like we've seen a 3% growth in revenue overall. McKinsey pointed out during that talk that Eric from McKinsey pointed out that that's in line with what we would expect with spending really overall. So we're not actually seeing some massive growth, which is just in line with the natural occurrence of, hey, this is available disposable income that we're seeing. Second things that I think that they dove into that was just really interesting is looking at so much Gen Z content that we're focused in on. And I think Gen Z is called the elephant in the room, but it's like, hey, it's the next generation. How are we capturing? What does this go? We know they're desiring it. It's almost that they've looked at the millennial generation, maybe some younger baby boomers, and they're saying, I don't want to wind up like this. I mean, I can't blame them on some of these cases, but they have the desire, they have the drive, they even have the knowledge. We're discussing them from an educational perspective. They're really leading in terms of social media, how we're being educated about what's possible in this. They still don't have quite the spending power that we're looking for in the industry. So I think it's how do we develop them so as they grow as consumers and their spending power grows, that we're going to see people who are ready to really leap in with both feet to the industry.
Well, and kind of to your point there on the social media side, and I know we're going to be discussing some of the trends that are up and coming and what drives them, and I know we will get to Pilates because of that, because I think you've had to say the word more than anybody else this entire conference. But the whole reason why I feel like that's having this massive resurgence is exactly because of them, because the way that they document it and the way they throw it together on TikTok and the cleverness in regards to how they're promoting these modalities is sparking curiosity, and not just in the female subset. You have male influencers that are now hopping on. You see it in sports divisions as well when they're talking about lengthening muscle, having that longevity, and it's allowing more people to hop on. One thing I found interesting, and the name escapes me of who said it in the talk yesterday, but they were like, look around the room. Unfortunately, a lot of the key players aren't quite of the demographic that are playing on TikTok. And yes, there's merit to having marketing teams that understand these spaces, but I would caution people, if they're very hands-off, dive in and have a look. Your algorithm's going to curate it to you very quickly, and you're going to see exactly what these Gen Zs are promoting. The power of them can't be understated, and then just think of who's coming up behind them, alphas, right? So they're going to be even more so, and then raised by these Gen Zers that have always understood, to your point, I don't want to be obese. Yeah. I want to be able to move. I want to be able to do all the things and live my life fully, or else how else would I document it for the selfie, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really interesting thing too. And some of the stuff I picked up from the speakers that I've been attending is the long-term tailwind of the younger generations for the industry overall. Like, they tend to drink less. They're more focused on health, right? A lot of things that I know my generation and generations older than me, like, not really a thing. I think it was Jeff from Miura said that by 2035, we're expecting the wellness industry to be, and fact check me on this, 185 billion. So we got that to look forward to, hopefully, right? And I think that's a really good sign. I think that gets people excited.
I had so many conversations, I can't remember exactly where I heard it, but Mo had an event last night, very glamorous event. And there was some influencers there that were talking about this. And apparently, on the female side, some of the younger generation, I guess, what do they call them? Gen Z?
Gen Z, yeah.
Gen Z, yeah. The way they communicate and talk about issues that other generations just are very closed
100%.
about. They seem to be, really open about discussing things that would normally seem to be quite sensitive. And, they're talking about it on social media, and so I think there's a difference also in the way that you communicate things that you can say, things that you can't say, and that, I guess, if you're targeting that demographic, is a really interesting thing to get your head around as well.
Yeah, well, the female tech that's happening in wellness is
my
100% what I have such keen appetite for. And to your point, and I don't even care if it makes people uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, no one was on social media talking about periods. No one was on social media talking about perimenopause. Now, finally, we have these young guns that are out there putting it out there. No one would be sitting here in these chairs if any of those factors of a female body didn't exist. But you look at what's happened in our healthcare system. I come from the Canadian side, obviously in the US as well. Female health has been so widely neglected. There are so many medications that we take that they haven't even studied the impacts on women. Yeah. So I'm like, the tremendous opportunity that they have as an industry side to embrace this, and the fact that you have these Gen Zers that are like, we would like to talk about it publicly on our platform, that's a space that excites me exponentially.
Yeah.
And going from that into even how fitness and women, where we sit in this. I mean, I love Stacey Sims, who always says, women are not small men. Most of the data, that we use and have relied on for really the last 60 years or so, it's all been based on men, except for the last 10 years. Obviously, we're going to be different than y'all from a hormonal perspective, from so many other things, how we build muscle, how we lose muscle, bone mass density, so many other things. It's the fact that that's a conversation that's happening, and we're starting to really generate and share this information. Social media, some information that's true, some information that is truly not on the wellness space. Every so often, oh my God, it's snake oil. Here we go.
And then it also is what's spreading.
Yeah, and podcasts. Let's be fair. Yeah, some podcasts.
It's okay. It's okay to say all this, but the thing that's happening is that we've broken the taboo on so many things. I think women's health being a key thing. I also, look at this. I've got 2 young boys. One of them is an exceptional athlete. Looking at youth athletics, where we've come off of a recent generation that's overthrown in baseball. We've seen kids just out of the game by the time they're 16 because they were overtrained, they were poorly coached. Athletic training is just something that maybe wasn't widely spread. I'm following the athletic training space enormously at this point because I suddenly have access to some of the best athletic trainers in the world for my children. I can see where they're going to, I can see what they're looking for, and I'm not reliant on a 23-year-old new graduate to say, this is the end-all and be-all of athletic training. I've got access to an entire platform. So between women's health, athletic training, and because my father was just with me, I have to say he walked me through everything he has been looking at for the age of 70 plus, because even that is one hell of a trend on social media.
Yes.
Okay, it's wild.
Tell me
It's
about it.
It's
wild.
so heartbroarming too when you see that.
Like, it's
do that,
incredible. So,
It's really, I don't know. No,
oh my God, really?
I'm gonna
Okay.
spam
I'm not a
both
big
of you
social media
aggressively.
person, to be
We
honest.
will totally share. So my father must have pulled up so many things as
Yeah.
we were going. My favorite are all the people who literally did not do a chin up or a pull up until they were like 65 years old, and
That's the
now
best.
they're 80,
Yeah.
and they are doing like numbers that I was like, oh my God, are you sure there's not someone like lifting them up?
Yeah.
Like, are you showing the feet? Is this like? But it's incredible, and I think they're also discussing, just like we're talking about female health. What are the changes that you're going to need to make to live long really well? Like, what does longevity look like when you're 70 years old? You've lived a life you can't change. Like, there
Yeah.
are markers that are just, they're set in stone. You did it when you were 20, 25, 30. What do you change now? What do you shift? So I think even that type of information, I mean, it's fascinating right now and how it's driving.
Well, and they're demanding a change in advertising. I
course.
interviewed this woman in the UK, Anna Jenkins, who owns a gym, and she realized when she was trying to curate content for her website that all the items on Canva were just like feeble women with pink dumbbells, and they got really upset about it. So they ended up contacting a company that does stock content and use their gym goers as models to show how people 65
Absolutely.
plus lift
Yeah.
weights. And it was so empowering because they were like, why are we being represented? Like, some of them could bench more than half the people. Well, maybe not in this room. Fitness people are fitness people, but go 2 floors up. They could probably bench press more than
Yeah.
them.
What
Yeah.
platform are you seeing that on then?
So interesting. TikTok, I have to
TikTok.
say, is a fascinating platform. If you track the statistics of TikTok on usage of people that are like 50 plus, I mean, it's coming in waves and droves. I think people are interested, maybe they have the time to create content, but they're interested in sharing on this. One of my husband's cousins, she's 58, wildly healthy, looks spectacular, I'm not going to lie. And last year, she just decided on Instagram and TikTok, she was starting a channel. Next thing I know, she's got literally, I mean, upwards of like 40, 50,000 followers in
Amazing.
a year. And all she's talking about is being a 58-year-old woman who loves life, loves all this, her health, her wellness, her fashion, because why not on this? But I think sharing this totality is fascinating. So between Instagram and TikTok, I will tell you an interesting stat on this. So on LinkedIn, we test a lot of images. The number one images that we test are of women between the ages of 55 and 70 on
Interesting.
our
I've
platform.
noticed that in what you guys do,
Close-up
yeah.
faces. I mean, that is the ones where we get the most engagement.
Interesting.
Now, I got to be honest with you, I'm significantly younger than that. And so when we were testing it, I was like, okay, is this like really going to work? This doesn't reflect me. It doesn't. But yet it's clear that people are drawn to this. And the number of women who write me and say, it's so nice to see representation of someone my age that is healthy, that is strong, that is everything else. Wild.
The wait is over. Our new Escape Fitness catalogue has landed. This is the essential guide to all of the latest product innovations that are shaping the future of functional training. Bigger and better than ever, this year's catalogue is 190 pages, jam-packed with everything from eye-catching, bespoke functional training frames to some of the latest strength training equipment. So sign up today to receive the digital version today. So what are you waiting for? Go to escapefitness.com now.
The fitness industry, though, continues to gravitate, and the conversations and at the events is the younger population. I've read outside of Dennis Kaiser years ago that used to really do a great job at promoting this. I don't see anyone that's talking about that 50 plus. Obviously, that's where I am, so I'm probably a little bit more tuned to it. But things when you get in your 40s, I hear, and 50s, like things do change quite a lot, and obviously you want to minimize those changes and sort of stay in your 30s as long as possible. But I don't hear people addressing that now. Some people have said, oh, well, the boomer and Gen, what am I, an Xer? The Gen X isn't as big as those other ones. But I'd have thought that there's definitely a lot more disposable income because a lot of people, when they're in the 50s, kids are gone, they're now at a different stage of their life, probably built a decent career. So they are going to be spending money. Health, my guess, is way more important or has a different reason to be important than when you were in your 20s and 30s, where it's probably about meeting someone else in some cases. Now it's almost like, well, it's not just about meeting someone, meeting a boy or a girl or whatever. Now it's like, it's really important. But I don't see as much of that. So what you've said about this trend on social media is interesting, but it wouldn't be the place I would think about going to TikTok to find content about 50, 60, 70-year-old guys. I don't know.
Yeah.
You're in for a pleasant surprise. We're going to get you on there right after this.
Yeah, I can't
Next
wait
thing
for
you
this.
know, you're
I don't
just
even have a
passing
Tik-
all
I don't even
over.
have a TikTok account.
Don't worry.
But I think one of the things too is like as we look at like our industry is really famous for hype cycles. Like every year we'll talk about coming to these conferences. There's a
Absolutely.
couple new words, right? But overall, I've been in this industry long enough, like 16, 17 years, to see that there's a few things that seem to stick, but they just seem to reemerge with different taglines. And number one is strength, right? And I think specifically what's exciting now, which is a trend that's emerging, and you guys have touched on it really well, is women's health. And what Dr. Stacey Sims has done, if people haven't read her book Roar or
amazing.
seen any of her talks, or the famous Huberman podcast she did a few months ago now, which was I think 3+ hours long.
Yeah.
I got to interview her a few times this year, and it's transforming the way it is. And now I'm aging into a demographic where most of the women I know are going through perimenopause or menopause, and it changes. She mentions like men tend to age in a linear fashion, right? Women do not, and 98% I think of all research done on the human physiology has been on men.
Absolutely.
That's kind of embarrassing overall, but it's
Very.
shifting really fast. And I think now we're starting to see a demand and a need to address that specific age group, the specific needs. I know a lot of people, smart people in this conference room, are addressing that really quickly, and I think it's going to be a huge opportunity. It's not just an opportunity for humanity and women and everyone that we love in our lives to feel better and look better and have control of their bodies again, but it's also an opportunity to, from a business perspective, to really serve at a very high level. So I think that's probably one of the most exciting things for me as a trend in this industry, is we're really positioned well to do it, because it takes better strength protocols,
Absolutely.
some lifestyle shifts, right? It takes education overall, and it takes a little bit of coaching, and I think we're really well positioned for that. So it's really cool, super exciting. And yeah, that's my take on that one.
It's nice to see strength balancing out in boutique fitness. I find that an interesting thing, because we think about strength and I think about the gym, right? But more and more programs that are showing up and saying, like, let's really lift together. Let's lift in community. Let's provide the education, the vessel. Let's provide a class format, a small group training. I mean, we've always had one-on-one training and small group training, but I think what we're seeing right now in boutique fitness is next level of where this is going to go.
Yeah.
It's also fascinating when you're combining that with things like a Staiku and InBody, with people's data. You're getting this concierge level of fitness that you can do, where you're really saying, okay, you truly do have more muscle mass on your right leg versus your left leg. We're going to start on your left leg because we're going to be building this up. Like, seeing what we're able to do right now, it's just so enormously powerful in that field, and it's refreshing. I love Pilates. I love bar. I'm not gonna lie, I have 2 comprehensive Pilates certifications. I've had a bar certification for 20 years. I have all of those things. But I always go back to lifting in the end. And I love it. I mean, it's like one of those things that I see, especially at my age, and looking at this with just, I've got kids that are young, I'm hauling them around all the time. If I'm not doing that, I'm in pain. Like, that is a reality. And so bringing this into the forefront and starting to see strength consistently being spoken of, but being interwoven in as the concept, it's beautiful.
What do you think? I went to another dinner after Mo's one with Emma Barry invited me and Exhibit, and we sat around the table. And one of the things that we were talking about is the narrow lens that we look at the fitness space in, which my guess is even more with boutique, but generally it's strength training, it's Pilates, it's kind of fitness. But when you think about and look at what health is, it's way more than that. That's probably like 10% of the whole person that you need to consider. There's the mental health, there's breathing, there's diet, nutrition, and a number of different areas. And yet, whenever we talk about things in general, even when people are putting business models, they bring them straight down. What are your thoughts about that, and how that's going to evolve, and should it evolve, and is it better that in order to get more people in than we've been able to do, we don't necessarily just rely on one of those sort of legs under the table to explain what we're really delivering to people? What are everyone's thoughts on that?
Yeah, one of the things that stood out to me a lot in the few talks that I was able to attend was one of the most basics, but that community element. So I come from the city of Vancouver. We lack third spaces tremendously. And so when I look at the boutique side, many of the boutique gyms now, you have your regular class set, but they also have a run club on Saturdays, which we know run clubs are actually dating, because nobody wants to online date anymore. That's really what run club is code for. Highly recommend it.
Okay. All right.
If you don't know, now you know.
Yeah.
But then also when I look at some of the gym spaces and the innovation that they've done, and we know that square footage even in Vancouver comes at a massive
price.
premium. But they're now dedicating a little, even if it's just a bar on there that is co-working so that your gym goers can socialize. And they are sandwiching in not just the classic protein shake on your way out, but you have a spot to have your coffee and do a little meetup. And I'm just finding that if we have more people in the fitness industry that understand that appetite for connection, and it really, you can tell by the speakers here, they're like, this is one of the most basic fundamentals of being a human being. We can also be spaces that can grow that out. And what was it, last May when the Surgeon General declared a loneliness epidemic? That is still a huge problem for people that are living in either suburbia or in massive cities surrounded by people. So I think that the more that they're able to branch out and have a little bit of diversity on top of the thing that, yes, you're getting your $40, $50 a class for, we're gonna have more people actually stick to their fitness, because at the end of the day, I'm sorry, it's only going to be like 5% of human beings that actually keep the habit. It is a rare breed of human, whether it's in your work life, your fitness life. So you have to attract them in another way. And if you do it through connection of people, that creates accountability. And before you know it, you have people that are like lifetime members because they've had incredible memories made within your experience.
Yeah, for me, I see us addressing this in a number of ways. I think community is a key piece of it. I think the fact that we're almost reverting back to ancient practices in some ways. You know, you go to an ancient Roman city, you go to the cross lines, it doesn't matter if you're in North Africa, if you're in Italy, wherever you are. What do you see? You see a spa and a gymnasium. It's literally at the heart of the city. I think we're seeing an expansion of what fitness can be to include, I mean, we know it, we call it wellness, whatever you want it to be viewed as. But in my mind, things like the Lanzerhof Center at the Arts Club in London, looking at Love Life, which just opened from the founder of Whole Foods, looking at Dave Asprey's Upgrade Labs, all of a sudden, we're
There's a
taking
Tony Robbins one I saw yesterday
Oh my
as
God,
well.
isn't it fabulous? It's, oh my God, the entertainment guy who's doing it. The first
Peter
one is...
Thiel? Is it Peter Thiel?
No, not Peter Thiel. It's, oh God, now I'm not going to be able to say it. Navarius or something. No.
Someone's
I'm
in there
looking
shouting,
this
being
up.
like,
I literally just had it pulled up, and I'm like, this is the first 100-room facility they're doing, and my husband's like, oh my God, I cannot believe this is where we're going to be landing like in a year and a half from now. And we will, I mean, it's fabulous. But you look at all of these spaces, let's even extend them forward on this one. We're seeing clients who are doing events with people like Six Senses. So they're doing retreats with some of the greatest luxury brands in the world. Like, we're starting to take a different view of like what's really incorporated. So is there a doctor that's on staff when they're going through this? Are you going through some type of WellSpan or health span assessment when you join a fitness studio, when you join a club? Are you continuing to be tracked through this? Are we looking at more than just how you look, what the inches are, how many calories or macros you are consuming on this one? Are we looking at you? I think the next stage is very much from a cellular level, even from a DNA-based level. I was sitting with Ali Patrick, brilliant leader in the longevity space, and just looking at what we're going to be able to do from DNA-based just reviews and things of the like. We're going to start to see that even in our space, and I think we've been old-fashioned for a very long time. And science can't roll past us. Like, we are part of this. We have got to move along with where science is going. We've got to embrace it. We've got to be more about just levers and lifting and doing all of these things and looking at the body as a whole. There's just no other option.
Yeah, it's. I think a lot of what you're talking about too can be framed as precision wellness. That people
It's a
are
beautiful name.
what they're talking about now, which is super exciting. I mean, I'm all in, right? For me personally, I think one of the things to be more contrarian, a lot of people will say here is that we've done a really good job of keeping people in our vertical very healthy and very, like, you look at people at this conference, we look amazing. I'm just going to say it. We really do. But it's not, but as you said, if you go 2 floors up, it's a very different thing. So I feel like we got to be careful. We get really excited about this stuff, but we leave a lot of people behind. And I can tell you, I was having this conversation on another podcast, is like, as a gym owner, I don't think I had a hard time getting people that had never been in the gym before to come into my gym. So that 80% that we talk about, right? Constantly for like 30, 40 years. The problem was keeping them there the first 90 days, right? Because they train a little bit, right? I apply what I thought was good training, but then they're too sore. It hurts too much. They don't want to come back the next day. So we can get really swept up in a lot of really cool shit, right? For our industry, I do it every day, right? I give it all to me. I want it all. But we do leave a lot of people behind, and sometimes I wonder, and this is just philosophically speaking, do we put too much pressure on our industry to solve all the world's problems through health, right? Or do we just say, this is what we are, we're really good at it, and for people who want it, we're here. So I don't know. That's a big question when I walk away with these things. What are we really doing here? Who are we trying to serve? Because we can talk about this big philanthropic vision that we have, but it's been a long time, and we haven't been able to crack the code. So I don't know. Just thoughts.
Maybe a quick way to finish is one word that would, I guess, in your mind, summarize where you think we are after a lot of the conversations we've had today. So
Really? You're starting with
one
me?
word.
Oh, I guess this means I get to own the world. Well, I mean, the one thing I'm just struck by is there's innovation right now like nothing before. Innovation is just, it blows my mind every month what's rolling out.
Yeah. Excitement. I think it's renewed. A lot of new people come into the industry, a lot of new views, a lot of new science.
Yeah.
That whether or not that trickles down to the masses or not, it's super exciting. So I think it's really interesting right now.
Elevation. I feel like we're on the elevator where more things are popping on at every floor, and we're actually like, yes, come on in, let's squish, because together, I mean, when you put those healthcare pieces together, when you really start to understand the demographics that have this keen appetite to get moving, when we include because I know social influencers sometimes get a bad rap, but have an understanding that they are our voices propelling this message from the top down. I'm like, hop on the elevator. It's going to look really good on the rooftop.
Love that.
I think mine, and I'm talking to probably a lot of people I know that have been in the industry previously as opposed to new people who are coming in. I think the word for me is crossroads. I think there's so much change, so many things to think about, so many external influences, consumers that are super smart now about information that almost in some cases know more than many of the people. I was chatting to Matt Delaney from Equinox last week, and he said, look, people who are coming in the gym know more than some of our trainers.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's a very exciting, and adding all of your words, crossroads, and I think it's it's going to be fun to see sort of like where things go next, and what we'll be talking about in a year's time when we come back here.
I love it.
So I think that's a good place to end. You guys?
I think well done us that we actually ended. We're podcasters and shares.
We're going to talk for a couple hours. Yeah. Thanks for doing this, Matt. We really appreciate it.
So much.
Thanks everyone.
This was incredible.
Thank you, guys.